Hello, and welcome to Thinking Out Loud. I'm Gloria Polites of LTC, your host for today's show. And with me in the studio today is Dr. David Foreman, who is known as the Herbal Pharmacist, and whom some of you may recognize if you've been watching us, because he did a show with us a while back, showing us how to eat some things that would curb our appetite, and which was a very helpful show. Today he's here to talk about back pain.
So, yes. Thank you.
Welcome. Nice to see you again.
It's great to be back in the community. I love it here. I just love the amount of history that bubbles up all over the place. You can stumble onto it without even knowing it.
That's so true.
Yeah, so thank you for having me back.
You're very welcome. So, Herbal Pharmacist, what's the connection with back pain, and how did you get interested in that particular area?
Well, back pain in particular is the number 3 reason that people go to their doctor. Mm. And so that's kind of eye-opening in itself. And September is like pain month. I don't think it includes in-laws or outlaws, but other family members and colleagues. But yeah, back pain is just such a prevalent issue, and I don't know about you. I've had issues in the past with lower back pain. I feel like so many of my friends have experienced it at some point. I believe they estimate that the average American, about 80% of Americans will have some sort of back problem in their lifetime, and usually once you get it, it becomes a recurring issue. And then as the herbal pharmacist, I'm always looking for ways to help people in areas that modern medicine seems to fail. And I'm not saying I'm against modern medicine.
Totally.
Well, I mean, my background was originally pharmacy, so I'd be kind of hypocritical to say, I mean, I owned a drugstore, I did really well, so I'd be kind of a hypocrite if I said none of it works. But the reality is that there are an awful lot of things natural or different, we'll just call them holistic approaches that we can do or take that will help mitigate a lot of health challenges, including back pain.
Right. And there's so much danger of overprescription and that kind of thing nowadays. And I particularly have been lucky, sore back a little bit, but in my family, my dad oftentimes threw out his back, my aunt threw out her back. And so, I understand that a lot of people suffer
and
back pain.
There's a lot of reasons that people will develop a back problem. I mean, for me, when the first time I ever had an issue, I was just out of pharmacy school, and I had an issue with sciatic pain to the point where it had gone. If anybody's had it, they know it hurts in your buttocks on one side, and then it radiates usually into your hip, and if it's bad enough, you can feel it almost all the way to your foot. And for me, it went all the way to my knee, but there's so many. I don't even know what caused it. I mean, I was in my upper 20s, so it's kind of a weird. I was athletic. I was in good shape. It just didn't make sense, and so there's a lot of reasons people develop back pain, and that's why I think modern medicine has so much of a challenge, really helping people get the relief they're looking for, because oftentimes we just say, "Oh, you've got back pain, take this pill," without really figuring out what's causing the ill, like that.
Right, and thinking of other alternatives. That seems to be the first alternative. Well, let me prescribe this for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I understand there are some studies now that show that that's probably not the best way, certainly not the first thing you look at.
No, and it's funny. I brought a couple of examples here of things that I don't know if I'm allowed to touch these or not, but some gizmos and gadgets, we're calling them, shoe inserts or the back braces. I picked these up at my local grocery store. Some of the bigger local grocery store chains, even they have a pharmacy to carry this. You can buy this in these things in your local pharmacy. These shoe inserts were actually labeled for lower back pain, and the Journal of the American Medical Association recently published an article saying that their evaluation is that we've just been wasting a lot of money on these strap-on back braces and shoe inserts, and in all honesty, even some of the over-the-counter pain relievers, that we're just wasting our money, and that really, if people would just stop buying these and start getting some exercise, which anybody that has a back problem right now and they're hearing me say exercise, they're like, this guy's crazy. But they showed that, and it didn't matter what kind of exercise, but if you got more exercise, that one, your back issue would go away quicker and prevent it from reoccurring in about 40% of the people.
Wow, that's really wonderful.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we have to go out and run the Boston Marathon. You know,
I'm not ready for that.
You have to get on a bike and ride it. They looked at yoga, even just stretching and stuff. Like my last back problem was about a year ago, and it was from playing golf repetitively. And for me, the answer was just stretching. Like that was the big thing. All I did was add stretching to my. I had some supplements I took, and we'll talk about those later, to help me along in the process. But yeah, the science is pretty interesting on the billions of dollars we're wasting on things that really just don't work.
Wow, and so there are much cheaper things that do work.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
And the sad thing is, like pain relievers. I've got an example of one here. So acetaminophen, which is Tylenol. That's the generic name for Tylenol. Ibuprofen. Naproxen. Those are the three big pain relievers that people buy over the counter. A study showed that people were thinking that the suggested dose on the bottle was just that, a suggestion or a guideline, and people with back pain, almost half of the people were exceeding the recommended dosing. And I don't think people realize that, and this comes from the pharmacist in me, not the guy that is now the herbal pharmacist, but the reality is those pain relievers come with an awful lot of potential serious side effects: kidney damage, liver damage, and in some cases death. And I'm not trying to be the conspiracy theory person, but too often we rely on these over-the-counter pain relievers without really addressing the underlying cause.
Right. And that's something that's. I'm not good with medication, period. So it's like, actually, one of the things I'm taking now, it's supposed to be 2, and I'll take 1 a day, not 2 a day, and I'm fine with that, and feel fine with that. So, but I do know a lot of people, that feel that just because that's supposed to be the maximum, it still hurts, or still has the headache, whatever. They're going to pop another one,
My 19-year-old son, I couldn't believe this. I mean, being raised in the house he was raised in, with me being the pharmacist and then the natural health expert, and he was a pitcher in baseball, and his shoulder was bothering him, which is a very common thing in pitchers anyway. Sure. And he was taking a handful of Aleve tablets, which is naproxen. And I was like, buddy, you're going to mess up your kidneys, liver, and the thing was, he wasn't even getting the relief. And I'm like, so why do you keep taking them if you're not getting relief? That's another area I think that people, it's common sense, but I guess when you're miserable, you're going to keep doing whatever you can.
Right.
In the hopes that it's finally going to work.
Right. Not keeping in mind that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and not getting a different result.
I'm so glad you said that and not me. I was going to say that. I'm like, well, who's watching, and they might be insulted. So I'm glad you did.
Sorry if I insulted anyone.
No, it's true, though.
Yeah. Right. So, you said there are different kinds of exercises you can do, the stretching and
so I have this like 4-pronged approach to helping people with chronic back issues. So on the table here, I have an example. This is I call it an activity monitoring device. So then there's so many different types out there that you can get, and this represents exercise. Being active, I talked about earlier the study that was published in JAMA, showing that getting regular exercise. A lot of things happen when you get exercise, and this even works beyond lower back pain. Say you have arthritis in your hands or knees or wherever you have arthritis, movement is one of the best things. And a lot of people think that's counterproductive. Like, why would I want to move more when I've got a structural problem with my spine or with my hips or my knees or even my hands? Well, they've shown that actually getting that movement will decrease the pain. The movement stimulates circulation in the body, and when you get good circulation, especially in the areas where you're having pain, there's a lot of nutritional healing properties and values that go into that increased circulation. When I was talking about my hip being an issue or my back from golf, besides stretching, another thing I did was I used a recumbent bike. That way I wasn't leaning over. I was sitting down with the support from my back and strengthening the muscles. So that's the other part. By exercise, you strengthen the muscle groups. And by strengthening your muscle groups, it'll strengthen your core. Usually you'll have less back problems. If you do enough exercise, your body starts to produce its own little drugs called endorphins.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have heard of runner's high. That's the endorphin thing, where it's your body producing its own natural painkiller. So exercise, again, it didn't really matter in the study that JAMA did from yoga, which, if you've never tried it, I highly recommend it. Have you ever tried yoga before?
No, I did. Right. I've done a little bit of Tai Chi, and I'd like to go back to it, but not.
That's a great.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
And even though, and that's another, it's a form of movement,
right?
Right.
Exactly.
And then there's also the spiritual component to it, which we don't have time to get into today. But that's another. I think I've always preached 4 pillars of health: diet, exercise, which we're talking about, spirituality. That's the with Tai Chi, I think you get that, and then supplements, and we'll get to, actually the next 3 things have to do with my 4-pronged approach. Prong 1 was exercise. Good. Should we move on down the road?
Sure.
All right, cool. This is, and I hope it's okay to touch it. I'll hold it up. It's laying over. This is a vitamin D test kit.
Oh.
Research has shown that people, here, I'll hold it up more just in case. Research has shown that people who are deficient in vitamin D were significantly more prone to having back pain issues. I'm going to take it a little bit further because I've been doing a lot of reading on the vitamin D topic, and research is showing us not only does vitamin D deficiency have to do with lower back pain, also has to do with arthritis and just people with chronic pain at all. So I'm encouraging people to get their vitamin D. Don't just randomly go out and take vitamin D. You should really find out what your vitamin D levels are. I'm actually participating in this national initiative. It's called Power of D, and so the website's powerofd.org. I highly recommend you can go there, order. You can learn more about vitamin D and vitamin D deficiency, but you can also even get your vitamin D test kit. It's not something you necessarily have to go to your doctor. And then there's some guidelines that they'll give you on, depending on what your score was. I'm surprised. I live in Florida. I do stay pretty active outside, and I take a vitamin D supplement, and I had mine tested, and I was in the healthy range, but I was on the low end of it, and I was really surprised because of what I just said, that I take vitamin D, I am getting what I feel like is a decent amount of sun, and so that's why I encourage people, don't guess, just don't go to your health food store or pharmacy and get vitamin D, or at least talk to your doctor. But again, the website, powerofd.org, and you can learn a lot more. Yeah,
well, it would be good for me. I do take vitamin D. I talked to my doctor about it, but I don't know what the levels are. So.
Well, it's honestly, but the more and more I'm learning, I think, for years we thought of vitamin D just for, rickets when you were a kid,
Right.
And I mean, seriously, I go back far enough for that one. And then it was, it's good for osteoporosis, and thinning of the bones. And it really does a lot more, and so it's really a good idea to get your levels checked. Don't guess. Okay.
Okay. I'll do that.
All right, you better. At least call your doctor up and say, hey, what was my D level? That's not a bad thing.
Okay.
Because you might need to take more, especially living here.
Right.
If you live above the middle of the country, your dosing might be twice what it is for someone living equidistant on the other side of the middle of the country. So,
right.
And the middle of the country is if you drew a line from, say, Columbia, South Carolina, all the way over to LA. That would be the line where anything above that, and you'd think South Carolina is pretty far south, especially for people living here in Massachusetts or New Hampshire, Connecticut. Whoever's paying attention to us right now. Like I grew up in Pennsylvania. I never really thought of that as being too far up north, or living in Virginia for years. But you may require more vitamin D. I have 2 other supplements I'm going to talk about, and so the second supplement is actually available also in a topical. So the ingredient's called Celadrin. So if you go to your local health food store or even pharmacy, even some of the big box stores carry it. The ingredient is Celadrin, so they might have their own brand of it.
Right.
But Celadrin has multiple benefits with the topic of our back pain. and really honestly just pain and inflammation in general. So by mouth, Celadrin helps re-lubricate your cells. It provides the good fat that your body will use to rehydrate your cells. And that's really important for especially with connective tissue, that spongy stuff. So when, you know, say your vertebrae are the bony parts, and then in between there's a cushion. And regretfully, as we get older, we start to dry out, and then it compresses a little bit, and so there's not and the same thing happens in your knees and your hips, the larger joints, and as that dries out, then you're going to have more rubbing of things that shouldn't rub, and that'll trigger more inflammation. And when you get inflammation, there's usually no room for it, so it pinches down on nerves, and that's why you get pain. That's the quick biological, physiological thing here. So what Celadrin does is it helps rehydrate those cells, and then there's studies also showing where it helps the body's natural fight against inflammation. So it's a supportive mechanism. And then topically, it works within like 20 minutes. So it's one of my favorite things to recommend for people with chronic pain, or if you're having a day, like my son I was talking about earlier, his shoulder, I would just say, you know, I used to call him dude, I'm sorry. I'm not from California, but anyway, like, dude, put some Celadrin cream on your shoulder. And, you know, within 20 minutes, he started feeling relief. For people that have chronic pain, I recommend they put it on 20 minutes before they go to bed. It helps ease up and get you through those rough times. So again, it's available in both capsule form and in a topical form.
Right. It just makes me think that, you know, there have been products on the market for a long time that were used to relieve pain and that kind of thing. Now, did they have Celadrin, or is I don't want to mention any commercial names,
I'm
but
afraid to do this.
Exactly.
I'm afraid to do the same thing.
But I think people will probably know that.
Well, yeah, exactly. So the one that, you know, said blank cream, that had more of an aspirin effect. So no, it didn't. The other ones that are kind of really smelly, that, you know, that's where you're going.
Right.
No, they didn't. That actually used a form of mint, a menthol that came from. So, but which also has a little bit of that salicylic acid in it, which it had that. Pardon me, had a little bit of that aspirin thing, and that also stimulated circulation, which is another. That's where you got the heat from it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you're making me have flashbacks to when I was a teenager in sports. You know, you had to put that smelly stuff on.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it's different. So, okay. You'd have to look for the actual name. And like I said, Celadrin's the name of the ingredient. So
that's what you look for.
Yes. Right. It's like for me, it's like saying vitamin C. You could go to a local drugstore and you can find 5 different brands of vitamin C. They're all, but in this case, if you went to your health food store and you found Celadrin, they might have their own store brand. They might have 2 or 3 other brands as well.
Right.
Okay. And then our last supplement.
Moving on,
if that's okay.
Yes.
I don't want to. It's your show, not mine.
You're the guest.
You're always too gracious and kind of me, I must say.
Thank you.
Well, you really are. This is you do a great service to the community here. I'm sidebar, seriously. So.
That's our mission.
Well, that's a good thing, and I hope the people in your community appreciate it, because I don't know if they know the time and effort that you take to do this. So. I thank you on their behalf. How about that?
Well, you're welcome.
So the last herb supplement is an herb I used to jokingly call my herbal muscle relaxant. No, it doesn't have the same powerful effect if your doctor prescribed one. But I found that a lot of times it gives a little bit extra relief. So it does help relax muscles. The other thing it does, if you take enough of it, it can even induce some drowsiness. So normally people just take the recommended level during the day. It usually doesn't cause drowsiness that way. If you have anxiety, it'll help take some anxiousness away. Sometimes people have pain in their neck, shoulders, or back because they're tense. They're stressed out. I mean, gosh, driving around here will stress me out. So, I'm like, I want to know where people learn to do. Sorry, I guess I shouldn't abuse the people who live here, but some of them are not good drivers. I'm just saying. I was stressed out.
No, you're kidding.
No, I know. Oh, come on. Maybe you just grew up around here. You're used to it. Anyway, that was, I shouldn't have gone there, I guess.
That's all right.
But so passion flower is one of those good things to help with anxiety and tension. A lot of times that'll make the muscles tighten up. especially with back problems, muscles get tight. Your body's trying to protect itself, but what the body doesn't realize it's doing is the muscles are pulling. So your spine's lined up like this, and you get a muscle pulling this way and a muscle pulling this way, and now you've pinched a nerve. And so passion flower is one of those things that I recommend to help kind of chillax the muscles. And the other thing along the lines of muscle relaxing is, if you can afford it, a massage at least once a week. If you can afford twice a week, that'd be great. And you don't want one of those little fluffy type massages. You really want to get to the point where you're maybe doing a deep tissue type massage, because oftentimes with people especially with lower back issues, they've got a muscle that's really knotted up, and by just light massage, you're not going to get that out. It's going to take a little bit more. So in general, it could take a combination. So for me, with my lower back issue I had from golf, I had a knot that formed in my upper buttocks, and so I went and got deep tissue massage on that. I applied Celadrin to it to help ease that up. I took passion flower at bedtime just to, one, it helps you sleep better, because if you're in pain, you're having trouble sleeping, and I took Celadrin by mouth. I was already doing the vitamin D, so, and mine was really my injury was caused by a traumatic event of golf. It was that, I'm a pretty good golfer, I swing hard sometimes, and it causes your spine continually going the wrong direction. It's not necessarily a healthy form of exercise if you have a back problem.
Right. Once upon a time, there was a connection I made with somebody who knew someone who was a student in massage. And they had to do so many hours of free ones under, another.
Nice.
Yes,
Good
that was
friend to have.
wonderful. Yes, unfortunately, that came to an end, but it was wonderful. It's true. It just does wonders for your back, and I do tend to have a stiff neck, which is I'm in a choir, and Father always has us start by massaging the person in front of us, and then turn around,
right,
so that it'll loosen up the,
That's true.
the cords,
I never even thought about that. You're right, exactly. Another tip I've had for people, if you're like, you're in the position I was with the muscle in my buttocks, you can get a tennis ball. Tennis ball is the best, I think, and lay on your back and put that tennis ball on what I call the hot spot, and then kind of roll back and forth. And it'd be great if you could find a family member to help you out, but who wants wants to do that? So, and after a while, the shoulders, like you were talking about, not everybody has somebody available to do that for them. So there are other ways to get around it other than spending $60 for an hour massage.
So true. So these are things that people can find in the drugstore.
Exactly. I mean, the test kit, vitamin D you can find pretty much anywhere. Celadrin you should be able to. And if not, if you go to a health food store especially, they can always order. Like the store I go to, where I live in Florida, there's 2 stores I will frequent, and sometimes they don't have what I need. I'll ask them to order it. I mean, the cream I actually ordered off of a website. These are actually they're all my personal stash. And then the passion flower.
Practice what you preach.
I definitely do. It's interesting because my one store that's actually why I ordered the cream online. Because my local store was out of it. I don't know, probably because it works.
Exactly.
But they should be easy to find, and most pharmacists may or may not know. I mean, it's kind of about some of these things. I feel sometimes pharmacists are not like me, and as progressive on the natural health thing, they've got so much to do with the modern medicine approach. It's tough to learn and know everything. I'm not picking on pharmacists. That I know, as having practiced and owned a very busy store, it's tough to be able to do both. So don't feel bad if your pharmacist doesn't know. Okay.
Okay. That's good to know. There were other studies, and you had sent me, or Ladora had sent me links, and I didn't bring them up here. But where else can we get some information about all of the things that you've discussed?
Well, I planned ahead for you, Gloria.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you ready for this?
Okay.
So if you go to my website, herbalpharmacist.com, I started a blog about a year ago, and so anytime I have these type of segments, I've learned now to write a blog on it. So I have a pretty extensive article on my website. It's for free. You know, you could probably print it out if you want to. I like people to do that. I like people to print it out, take it to your healthcare provider, show them the information. A lot of times healthcare providers aren't up on this kind of thing, like the vitamin D. It wasn't until I got approached by a friend of mine on the topic of vitamin D when I really just started digging into it. And you know, now I know that it's one of my favorite things to recommend for people that have, you know, immune health challenges, not just bone health. So, but yeah, there's lots of different studies available out there. Like there was a study done in India that was the one that I was talking about with people that had lower than normal blood levels of vitamin D were more prone to have lower back problems. So that may be one of the things you were referring to.
Yes.
But that information should be on my blog for you.
Oh, that's great. So all those links that I was sent and all of that.
I hope so. If not, I really, again, through my website, I encourage your viewers to email me directly. And it doesn't have to be about this topic. My background's pharmacy, so I know an awful lot about biology, physiology, you know, all the disease states. I know modern medicine, and I know the natural world. And I encourage people to email me. There's a contact us, and that the us is me, myself, and I. There's a team. I always say I have a team of 3: me, myself, and I. So if you don't see what you're looking for, you're welcome to email me directly as well.
Right. And if some of you missed the show we did before with, you know, what foods you can eat that will help curb your appetite, and that way you don't gain as much weight, or any weight, we hope. But you can email and find out about that too.
Yeah, I probably actually on my website I have a link to my YouTube page. I don't think the interview I did here is on that, and I don't think it's probably with you anymore, but I do have articles I've written.
We actually have it on demand.
Do you? Okay,
yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, come to ldc.org.
All right, there you go.
It's on demand. So
say it again.
ldc.org.
Right, exactly.
David Foreman. It's a Thinking Out Loud. So thank you so much for coming back here and with wonderful information.
I appreciate it.
We thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Thinking Out Loud.